I'm Dave Borchard alongside Andy Edwards. Our boy Jed producing the show as always. Jed's in a good mood. This is great. You know, Sporting KC's got all the good vibes coming off MLS Cup. Our boy Jed has all these great New Year's resolutions he's enacted. This is awesome, and we got lots of good stuff to talk about. We'll certainly take your calls throughout the course of the show. Peter Vermes, Sporting Kansas City manager, technical director, will join us next segment around 7:20 or so. Got lots of things to talk about with him, obviously. But, Andy, I guess we have to start with the obvious thing. The team is coming off the ultimate accomplishment. They did win MLS Cup. They finally reached the top of the mountain. You know, what kind of carryover, if any, do we see as the team gets ready to start preseason camp this week?
Well, one of the hardest things in sports has always been said by coaches and by players. As tough as it is to win one championship, it's even tougher to come back and win a second one and to do it consecutively. This time around in 2014, as they go through a 34-game regular season, they will get every team's very best shot every single time they step out on that field because whether it's Chivas USA or it's Real Salt Lake or the Portland Timbers, Seattle Sounders, it does not matter who it is, they will get the best shot because those teams are going up against the defending champions. And if you want to make a statement about your intentions for the season, what better way to do it than taking down the team that is currently champion of the league? And so they're going to see probably a competitiveness from other teams every time they step out on that field. It's going to be a little bit different than they've ever seen before. And, you know, this group of guys that they have, sure, they've been through everything together multiple times now. This is a core of a team that's been together solidly for a lot of it 4 or 5 years even, going back to the days at Community America Ballpark. So it's not as if they're untested, but this is a little bit of uncharted territory, I think, for them. And so it'll be interesting to see, especially the first couple months of the season, how they react to that, how they respond. It's just going to be it's going to be an insane year because if you think about it, defending MLS Cup champions already, 34-game regular season. We've got a CONCACAF Champions League knockout run that they're hoping to make at the very, very beginning of the season. They're going to play one league game, and then they're going to jump straight into that. Potentially, that could be another 2 games. It could be another 4 games even if they go all the way to the final. We've got a World Cup that's going to happen right in the middle of the entire season. 6 weeks. That's going to take some guys out of MLS. Then they're going to have a U.S. Open Cup run that they're going to hope to make. Then they've got to do Champions League all over again. I just got tired thinking about all the games that we're going to be at, all the radio shows we're going to have to do, but I couldn't be more excited. I'm sure the guys on the team share the same sentiment as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking about that on the way in because last year was so crazy. I guess maybe a blessing the team didn't have a long Open Cup run because it was a busy schedule with the Champions League. And now, like you said, this year it's a double Champions League. I assume the team will go at least as far, if not further, in the Open Cup. And then you have the World Cup, like you said, there in the middle of the season. This is going to be obviously, last season was one of those never forget historic seasons for Sporting KC, but on the surface, this looks like it's going to be one of those again, no matter how it ends up.
Yeah, well, you know, Peter Vermes accomplished, like you said, the ultimate goal in Major League Soccer, lifting MLS Cup last year on December 7th. But he's going to have his work cut out for him even more this year with all of those things to look out for, and how he's going to manage his roster, how he's going to manage his players individually. You know, how many minutes should this guy get here? How many should he get here? And, you know, just keeping guys fit and rotating guys in and out. It's going to be an insane year, and I think, you know, we should go into it with that kind of understanding, a little bit of perspective that it is going to be a completely different year than anything we've ever experienced here in Kansas City as far as soccer goes, because now we do have the successful model team as far as Major League Soccer goes. And so, you know, look, this is what comes along with winning. You know, you win, you find yourself in situations like this. And so, you know, if things aren't perfect from day one, you know, it's not time to jump ship and think that the sky is falling or anything. So, yeah, I'm just looking forward to this year getting started.
Feel free to tweet us your questions if you'd like. I'm Dave Borchard, BORCHARDT. He is at AndyEdMLS. And again, Peter Vermes, Sporting KC manager, joining us here at 7:20. The one big unknown still with this team is Chance Myers, the regular starter most of the last several years. Still not signed. There's been some rumors of him possibly flirting with teams overseas. I know I saw at least one in the championship division over in England. I think that's the big unknown for Sporting KC. We'll ask Peter Vermes where negotiations with Chance Myers stand. But if he does not return to this team, what kind of impact does that have? We know Michak Jerome was pretty good last year when he had to step in. There's other guys that are options like Josh Gardner, like Kevin Ellis. How important is Chance Myers, and what would it mean to get him back?
Yeah, well, not only is Chance Myers just a very, very good player for Sporting Kansas City the last 2 years since he's found a consistent run of being healthy and able to contribute week in and week out, but he also fits to an absolute T Peter Vermes' system and what he looks for in a right back. Somebody that on that right wing is not going to be just strictly a defender. Somebody's not going to sit back there and just look to defend. Someone that has the athleticism, the speed, the technical ability, the ball skill to get forward and contribute in the attack as well. And so, look, I would expect them by the end of the preseason, before the season gets started on March 8th, I would expect Chance Myers to be re-signed by Sporting Kansas City. I firmly believe Peter Vermes, Rob Heineman, everybody involved understands how important he is to this team. And he is, because that back line is the absolute foundation of this team and everything that they've done the last couple of years. But it would be a huge loss if Chance Myers is to become tempted by something overseas and he decides that, with 4 months to go before the World Cup is here, maybe that's his best option in getting into Jurgen Klinsmann's plans for the national team, maybe finding a spot in Brazil. It'd be a huge loss. But like I said, and you would expect nothing different from Chance Myers and what he's given you the last couple of seasons. There's a reason that he got this call into the national team camp. I know it's just a January camp. We say that, but the fact of the matter is, it's 5 months until the World Cup starts this June, and Chance Myers is in a U.S. national team camp. So if he's there, he has a chance of making that roster, and it's because of everything that he's done the last couple of years. And this system, like I said, just fits him so perfectly. It puts him. Not only does he help the team perform well, but the system puts him in his, I would say, probably the absolute best situation for him to perform and succeed as an individual.
Now, if Chance Myers does re-sign, then I think the biggest question mark going into the season is who's going to be the starting goalkeeper. Jimmy Nielsen obviously retires, and it was an odd way to end his career in some ways. He had kind of a rough game in the MLS Cup final,
different from him?
But then in penalty kicks, he was amazing. And I think we talked about it a little bit throughout the 2013 season. His stats were still very good, but we thought he was slowing down at least a little bit compared to what he had done in the past. The retirement didn't surprise either of us, especially considering that he was able to leave on top. But that leaves a void that's going to be filled by one of two guys, it looks like, either Eric Kronberg or Andy Greenebaum. And from everything we've read, and I'm interested to get Peter Vermes' take as well, it definitely sounds like it's Eric Kronberg's job to lose. I would just be curious to get your take on, how much of this do you think is an open competition, or do you think, Kronberg's going to be the guy unless something goes really wrong in the preseason?
Yeah, well, Eric Kronberg's been here for 8 years with Kansas City, going back pretty deep into the days of the Kansas City Wizards even. And so he's by far the longest tenured player on this entire roster. I think Matt Beasler is going to come in second alongside Graham Zusi. Both of them came in 2 years after Eric Kronberg. So he's definitely a veteran on this team. He's only got 5 MLS appearances in total, 4 starts. So he's never had an opportunity to be a number one guy. He had Kevin Hartman in front of him early in his career when he was, maybe at a point where he could contribute to the team. And then they signed Jimmy Nielsen prior to the 2010 season, when you would have made a case that, well, maybe Eric Kronberg could be the guy then. So he's waited very, very patiently for his opportunity. I do think he's going to get a serious chance here. I think going into preseason, Peter Vermes has said Eric Kronberg has worked a long time for an opportunity to be the number one guy, and right now that's what he is. So at the moment, I completely believe that in Peter Vermes, the coaching staff's mind, Eric Kronberg is the guy. If they played their first MLS game tomorrow, I think he would be the guy in goal. Now, that said, there's an entire preseason to come. They're going to report for physicals on Friday. They're going to go to Arizona on Saturday. They're going to be out there for 2 or 2.5 weeks, and they'll spend a couple weeks in Orlando. They'll play probably, I think, between 6 or 8 games, preseason games. So there will be a lot of minutes for both of those guys, and it'll be up to them at that point to make the most of it. If you're asking me to handicap the race, I guess, if you will, for lack of a better term, I give a slight edge to Andy Grunenbaum. He's just got MLS experience. You know, he's been a regular starter for the Columbus Crew. He's made 79 starts in 100. And you know, in 8 years, he's conceded just 101 goals. But let's consider the fact he will have a significantly better back line in front of him here in Kansas City than he ever did when he was with the Crew. And so I just think maybe that experience will give him just a bit of an edge. Be a little bit unfortunate for Kronberg because, like I said, he has earned that opportunity to fight for a spot. But you know, the spot's not going to just be given
right.
to Grunebaum or to Kronberg. So whoever is starting in goal on March 8th against Seattle, they will have fully earned it, I think, in this preseason. And the onus will be on Grunebaum, though, to push Kronberg and take it from him because I think, like I said, right now it's his spot.
And I think you hit the nail on the head there because I agree with what you said. It seems like right now it's Eric Kronberg's job to lose. But it is different than what Sporting has done with the last couple times they've had this goalkeeper spot open up.
They went out and signed a big-name veteran.
Correct. And so Greenbaum is more the veteran, even though Kronberg has a long tenure in the league. Greenbaum has much more MLS action. So it is interesting because, like you said, Peter Vermes' quotes certainly lead you to think Kronberg's the number one guy, at least for now. But the track record of the organization the last 7 or 8 years is when it comes to a spot like this, they'd rather put in a veteran guy. So I do think it's going to be very interesting. I do think even though they're saying it's Crony's job to lose, and I don't think that's a lie or anything, but I think it is very much going to be a competition. And I think you have two good options. I mean, Eric Kronberg, a big guy, an athletic guy, has had some trouble with injuries over the years, but when he's played, has never looked like a guy that didn't belong, you know? So can he take advantage of it? I know he's a very smart guy, like I said, a big athletic guy. And then you have a veteran in Greenbaum who's another good option. So I think, if nothing else, I don't think there'll be a big drop-off from Jimmy Nielsen. It's just going to be a new face in goal, and I think either way we'll probably see both guys this season.
It'll be a little different for the guys in the back line as well, hearing a different voice barking out orders and learning a new guy. But I think that comes with time, obviously, and the goal for every season will be to be playing your best soccer at the end of the year when playoff time rolls around.
Does it matter at all to you that there's 5 guys that are going to miss the first couple weeks of preseason camp that are off with the U.S. national team? Does that make any difference?
Yeah, well, it's not ideal. I don't think if you're looking to build chemistry and forge a strong team bond, but that's not exactly something that Sporting Kansas City have to really worry about at the moment. They're coming off of being MLS Cup champions last season, and it is like a group, like I said earlier, been together for a handful of years already. So the continuity, the understanding, the familiarity with one another, it's very much there already. And so I think it's something that once those 5 guys come back, Beasler, Zusi, Feilhaber, Sanovic, and Myers, I think they just go right back into the team, and everything feels like they were never away. That's just kind of the system and the Sporting way of how things are at the moment. The way Peter Vermes has put this team together, it just kind of flows very, very easily like that. So, I don't think it's going to be a huge problem. But sure, you'd like to have those guys working with the other 25 guys on the roster for the whole of preseason, but I don't think it's going to cost them once competitive games rolled around.
When we did our last show, people were already starting to look ahead to this year, and one question was Aurelian Collin.
And by the way, our last show was right after MLS Cup.
It was 6 weeks ago, yeah. First call.
It was 5 minutes after they had just won MLS Cup.
That's correct. Yeah, the first call was, okay, this is great. Let's look ahead till next year. And one of the questions was Aurelian Collin. There were some whispers about him looking to Europe. Peter Vermes on 8-10 this week said he'll be back. Another guy that was asked about was Claudio Bieler, and I haven't heard anything saying that he's not going to be here when the team reports for physicals this week. Do you expect Bieler to... How do you expect him to fit in the team? Because you talk about the continuity. He's a guy that came in and really hit the ground running, but as the season went on, he didn't play as much. But still, when he got the chance to play, he stepped up big against New England in the playoffs, in the penalty kicks against Real Salt Lake in the championship game. So he's a guy that certainly has some very good finishing ability. Assuming he's back, which it looks like he will be, where does he fit amongst this group of otherwise more young athletic forwards?
Yeah, I think from day one he's probably your number one guy at the center forward spot. He was last year to start the season. He returned 9 goals in the first half of the season for you. So in the first 16 or so games, He went out and got you 9 goals. That's a really that's an incredible return as far as Major League Soccer goes, and especially with a guy in his first season in the league as well. Usually it takes guys a while to adapt, and so you would think he would have a better understanding this time around, having played a full season in the league. He was a little unlucky in the second half of the season with some injuries that he picked up. He wasn't fully fit. He got back to being healthy, got back to being fit, then he got hurt again, so it cost him a lot of playing time in those late games, the last month or two of the season, and then he was only able to be kind of a cameo player once the playoffs rolled around. And like you said, he served his role, in those moments. He scored the big goal against New England to put them through. He's going to get every chance this year, I think, assuming that he's back. Dom Dwyer's going to get plenty of chances. I think CJ Sapong, Teal Bunbury, both going to get chances as well, because there's going to be a ton of games. And keep in mind, there'll be guys missing for World Cup duty. Zusi going to be gone for a month and a half or so. Failhaber potentially going to be gone for a month and a half. So, they'll have to do some switching around, moving guys here and there. So they'll all get minutes. I expect Bieler back, but, there's a little internet whisper on Twitter that came out yesterday from someone down in Mexico that Cruz Azul, who's actually the team that Sporting Kansas City are going up against CONCACAF Champions League, they are said to be, trying to kind of pluck one of MLS's big South American stars, I think is the way that it was phrased, from a team, and sign that player. Claudio Bieler probably fits that mold. No idea if he's the guy. First guy that came to mind, Federico Higuain from Columbus, somebody that could potentially be tempted by that. Who knows? It's been an insane, ridiculous off season. It's not even how can you call it an off season? It's been insane what's gone on so far. So nothing would surprise me at this point.
All right, we'll take a timeout. When we come back, we'll talk to the head man, Peter Vermes, Sporting KC manager. He'll join us. He'll talk about the offseason, look ahead to the start of preseason camp. That's coming up next here on the Sporting KC Show.
Whatever you require for audio, video, and broadcast solutions, it's Professional Video Supply. PVS is a leading supplier and integrator of pro video and audio gear for the Midwest. For the boardroom, worship, production houses, medical facilities, TV stations, and sports networks, PVS has it. Canon, Sony, Yamaha, Sharp, and hundreds of others. From a single camera or touchscreen display to an entire TV studio, remember Professional Video Supply, the official video source for 810 WHB TV at pvskc.com. pvskc.com.
Some of the best teams in the world are in Kansas City. The Chiefs, the Royals, Sporting, and the Border Patrol.
The Border Patrol?
St. John and Bucati?
Those two guys couldn't hold on.
Easy there, fellas. We may not be the two godfathers of Kansas City sports like you guys are,
but we do know how to have a good time talking sports.
And having a good time like Gary Lezak has a good time.
Make the Border Patrol a part of your morning, just like I do.
Watch Sports Radio 810's Border Patrol, weekday mornings from 7 to 8 on 38 The Spot.
It's a good price. It's low mileage. They were very straightforward about the lowest price and
no haggling, no hassle type thing. I'm all for that.
How did we do on your trade-in value?
Really well. I was hoping for half of what I got for it.
I got, over what I was thinking I was going to get for it.
We'll be back ourselves. Even if we don't live in the area, we'll figure out a way.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Sporting KC Show here on Sports Radio 810 WHB and 810WHBTV.com. I'm Dave Borchin alongside Andy Edwards, a special hot stove edition here of the Sporting KC Show. Expected to be joined here momentarily by Sporting KC manager Peter Vermes and an MLS champion Peter Vermes. How about, it was so funny, Andy, the last couple of years after a bad game, maybe it was a disappointing home loss or something like that, we'd get the occasional call in the postgame show that
it was a little more than occasional.
You need to get a new coach. And it's like, come on, people. He's won the Eastern Conference regular season 2 straight years, which didn't mean anything, but now it will with the new Champions League qualifying. So great regular season success. Won the Open Cup, won MLS Cup. I'm hoping that will at least buy him some good vibes where people won't call and complain this year, but I'm sure we'll probably still get some. People, to give him credit, people have very high expectations for this team.
Well, that was my first thought when you mentioned all the calls that we've gotten the last couple of years. I wonder how long into this season it is before we hear someone saying, is it time to get a new coach, and just completely bypassing the thought of everything that he's not only did last year, obviously winning an MLS Cup, but this entire this organization of soccer operation that he has put together, because everything that exists, the entire structure of the team and the academy, everything has been created in his philosophy, in his mind, the way a club should be organized. And so all of that is really his doing. I think he's a guy that does not get nearly enough credit when things are good, and I think coaches are always going to get all of the blame or most of the blame when things are bad, but I don't think that he gets enough when things are going good. And right now, looking back to 2013, they literally, I guess they could be better. They could win Champions League this year, but it's very difficult for it to get any better than that.
Again, Peter Vermes, expecting to hear from him momentarily. Where does he rank now? I think a lot of people would have said he wasn't the tactician of a, Dominic Kinnear, a Jason Kreis, but he beat those guys. And, yeah. And we have a phone call ringing in right now. Maybe it is Peter Vermes.
No, I'm just trying to him again.
Is he in the mix now with those guys?
Yeah,
is he in the mix with the Bruce Arena and guys like that?
Well, he's one of the few guys in the league that is handling both technical director and head coaching duties. And so he's not only responsible for the guys on the field, but he's responsible for bringing in every player. And he's in, like I said, the entire soccer operation is down to him. That's kind of his baby. That's his little child that he is molded and groomed, and it is what it is in his mind. That there's obviously the big names that have been around for a while. There's the Ziggy Schmidt, there's the Bruce Arena, but yeah, definitely up there. Not many guys currently in Major League Soccer can say they've got an MLS Cup to their name, and now he is one of them.
Speaking of Peter Vermes, he joins us now on the show. How you doing, Coach?
Good, guys. How are you?
Good. Thanks for taking time. I know it's getting ready to get real busy again, and honestly, you didn't get a lot of time to really relax and enjoy the title, but what was that moment like for you, Peter? You've worked so hard to get to this point, and the club's been on that upward trajectory here for several years under your guidance. Was that moment, when it all came to fruition, you guys win the MLS Cup, was it kind of what you expected it would be like?
Look, it to me, it was more a culmination of a lot of people within the organization having a vision and seeing it through, and then accomplishing that, but more importantly, really rewarding, I think, our ownership group, especially for not only the financial commitment, because I think that's the one that everybody obviously is most obvious to them, but more importantly, and you know this, Dave, how committed they are to the organization, how involved they are, and it's not from a bad perspective, but obviously a very good one, because obviously in sports sometimes owners are criticized for being too involved. Ours are involved because they care about the ultimate success of the organization, not just in the short term, but in the long term, and they realize that the foundation has to be built to be able to achieve that and be competitive year after year after year. So I think it was great for them, and obviously for our players as well, because it's something that we've been talking about and building a culture over the years. And for now them to get rewarded because of that commitment was also a really special moment, I think.
Well, Peter, you mentioned it there. You guys have obviously now won an MLS Cup. You've reached the top of the mountain, so to speak, in Major League Soccer. So now how do things change going forward? Obviously, that's kind of something you can say, well, been there, done that now. And maybe even this season in particular as well, having CONCACAF Champions League, the knockout portion of that tournament, just the second game into competitive games for the season. What kind of a challenge is that going to be, having to kind of hit that peak level of performance, the fitness and everything so early in the season compared to maybe years past where you've always talked about trying to peak at the right time of the season, right at the end as you're heading into the playoffs?
Yeah, I think it's two good questions. I think the first one is an easy one. I think, look, we had a good year. Last year we accomplished some important goals that we wanted to. Winning MLS Cup and then qualifying for the knockout stage of the CONCACAF Champions League. But, with that being said, it's a great accomplishment. We've done it, but that year's over. We're into a new season. And as you stated, and I think it's well put, it's going to be very difficult that next round of CONCACAF Champions League, based on the fact that we're going to be playing against Cruz Azul, who's in the midpoint of their season. They'll be in form. We'll be just starting our season, trying to make sure, as you stated, that we're peaking at the right time. And to be able to do that, it's not easy when you're starting the season, because you're just getting game fit. You're trying to reach your form, and you're trying to do all that over the course of obviously a 34-game season, and like you said, peak at the playoffs. So for us, we're going to have to accelerate our preseason than we normally would. We're going to have to get more involved in the style of play and the things that we want to do very early on in the beginning stages of our preseason, so that when we hit the first game of the season, which is against Seattle away from home, we got to be playing. I'm not going to say that we'll be firing all cylinders, but our fitness level and also at least our style of play has to be something that has to be at a much more accelerated place than it has been in the past when we started the season.
Sporting KC manager Peter Vermes joining us here on the show. Coach, I think maybe the one big question mark right now is Chance Myers going to be back with his team or not? Do you have any update on where negotiations are with him at this point?
Yeah, I mean, it's a simple one. We want him to come back. We've made an offer. It's now between him and his agent. We're just waiting for their response. It's always a tough thing when you come to these situations where you found some success over the last so many years. Players, based on their performances, want to continue to make more money, and I understand that. But when you're in a salary cap, there's only so much can go around, and so we're at a place where I think we've made a fair offer. I really do. Now it's just a matter of whether they want to accept it and want to stay here, and we'll kind of see where that goes. But, you know, the one thing that has always been the case and will continue to be the case with this club, and that is you've seen players come and go. There's been a lot of players that have moved on, some very good ones, obviously. To name a few, I mean, Roger Espinoza, you know, Kai Kamara, Julio Cesar, now Jimmy Nielsen. And you know, as players move out, there's other players that we've been working with and we've been trying to, you know, get ready for their opportunity. And if it doesn't work, then we'll have to move on to the next guy, and we'll have to make that guy work. It's unfortunate, but as I said, we'd like to have him back. Hopefully we can work out a deal, and I think we'll find over the next couple of weeks if that's going to become a reality or if we're both going to move in separate ways.
Chance is obviously one of those 5 guys that's with the national team right now. They're down there in Brazil getting ready for friendly against South Korea coming up here just in a week or so time. You know, what's it say about this organization that you know, 5 months before a World Cup, you've got 5 guys in a national team camp, 5 guys that you know, at varying levels of probability to make the World Cup team. And also, you know, does that complicate things just maybe a little bit more for you as you head into preseason and like we talked about earlier, having those very, very important games so early on?
Well, my first answer would be it's flattering, and I think it should be flattering to the club because it's been a, you know, culmination of a lot of hard work on a lot of different levels for our players to get there. But I think the biggest thing is that when I took over, I made it very clear to the guys that, you know, the one thing to find success is always going to be one center, and the center is always going to be the team. The team's always going to come first, and I believe that all awards, accolades, you know, increases in salaries and everything else all comes from the team. If the team's successful, then opportunities start to present themselves. And interestingly enough, in 2000, when the team that I played on here in Kansas won the MLS Cup as well, that following January we had 5 players that were also invited into the January camp. So it's interesting how when your team finds success, many of your players start to find it as well. So it's a testament to the you know, the work ethic and the progression a lot of these players have made. But at the same time, it has a lot to do with the success of the team.
Peter Vermes joining us on the show. Coach, obviously one big change for you guys going into 2014. Jimmy Nielsen announced his retirement. You have named Eric Kronberg the #1 goalkeeper, at least for now. And you have another good option with Andy Greenebaum that's going to be coming in and having his first season with Sporting KC. I know you spoke really well in the press release about Eric Kronberg and all the work he's put in over the years. If you could just tell us, you know, how excited you are for him to finally get that shot. And also, you know, I'm curious how much of this is an open competition, because obviously Andy has a good track record himself.
Well, I'll say it this way. I kind of alluded to this when as you talk about the press release, but you know, Eric has really paid his dues. He's been a solid citizen for the club for 8-9 years now. He has definitely perfected, I think, his craft. I think he's a goalkeeper that is ready and waiting to take on the opportunity to be the #1. He's worked extremely hard. He has been also a guy that has been very open-minded and has learned by the people that have been in front of him. And I think all of those things have bode well for a guy that's going to find success in that position. I have a lot of confidence in him. I think that he is incredible from a distribution perspective, very good shot stopper, has great range across the goal. Obviously with his height and his athleticism, I think he does really well at coming out on crosses. And so I think he deserves this opportunity based on how hard he's worked and how patient he has been and how he's progressed as a goalkeeper. So, you know, as much as you know, there's always competition in all the positions. I do believe that he's at least he should at least get the benefit of the doubt to be the #1. Go ahead and go with the position and play well. And he definitely has the full confidence of the staff, and I think all of us feel very comfortable with him. At the same time, competition is important. Andy Greenebaum was brought in as well, a guy with a lot of experience, but he's also a great team guy, and I know that he'll fit in well with the way our culture is within our team on the field and also within our locker room. and I think that Jonathan Kempin has been progressing as well. So I think we have a very solid core when it comes to the goalkeeper position at the moment.
Coach, I had one last question for you. You mentioned some guys earlier that had left, Kai Kamara, Roger Espinoza. And, you know, before the draft, you said something about, hey, it would be great if we could maybe add some more depth in the midfield. Just kind of reading the tea leaves there, maybe looking for some more depth in the midfield. Roger Espinoza, a guy that maybe hasn't played as much as he would have liked since he went overseas, although I know he's been playing a bit more lately. You know, is it out of the realm of possibility that a guy like Roger Espinoza, you know, could be back with Sporting KC at some point in the near future?
You know, I don't know. Those types of things always wind up being speculation, and I say that only because there's so many different things that are variables that could be a part of a discussion like that. You know, obviously, I have a great relationship with Roger. I think the world of him. I think he's an excellent player. It's unfortunate that he doesn't get the kind of playing time that I think that he should. But you know, I'm not his coach, and I'm not with that club, so. I would say nothing's ever out of the realm of possibility, but you know, he's there right now, and he's a part of their organization. So I think that's where it is. But we definitely want to add depth. You saw that we obviously drafted 2 more players in the middle of the midfield. We'll probably add another person here in the next coming weeks in that area of the field as well, because we just think that that's an area we just got to maintain our strength in, because that's our wheelhouse. And as we move forward, we're going to need as many bodies as we can, and obviously depth in those positions as we move through all the different competitions that we're in this year.
A guy a little bit similar to Roger, playing a similar position there, Michael Bradley, obviously just signed with Toronto FC of Major League Soccer. There was a report that Sporting Kansas City were involved with potentially bringing him here. Rob Heineman intimated on Twitter just a bit that you know, there were some discussions between the two sides. You know, one, what's it say about MLS that they can go out and get a player like Michael Bradley, 26 years old, arguably the best national team player out there at this moment? And two, what was the level of engagement between you all and Michael Bradley?
Well, first, you know, I think MLS is proving that it's not what a lot of people have been saying about us for years, and as we're a retirement league, you're starting to see a lot of players in their prime come to this league and be a part of it through transfers, through you know, obviously DP situations. So there's a lot of that going on, and I think, you know, as people continue to maybe criticize or a little bit negative around their league, I think what happens is we just keep passing those people by. So from that point of view, I don't really pay too much attention to it, because I think we're a league that is up and coming. We continue to push the needle up, and I think we'll continue to do that for many years to come. In regards to us, we are absolutely 100% involved in that opportunity to try and get Michael Bradley to come to Sporting. It was a player that we went after extremely heavily, and it's a player that we are, you know, I would say this, is that there's not a lot of players that I personally would put my reputation behind, but I think he's a fantastic player. I think he's a great professional. No doubt in my mind that he would fit really, really well into our team. But sometimes, you know, in these deals, you know, they go a different way, and it is what it is, I guess at the end of the day. But we'll be fine because of it, and we'll keep working. I think we still have a very, very good team without him, but we were definitely involved in that deal.
Hey, Peter, thanks for your time. Thanks for all the great answers, and good luck with the start of preseason. I'm sure we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, guys. Appreciate it very
Thanks a lot,
much.
Peter.
All right, take care. Peter Vermes, Sporting KC manager. Some pretty good topics there, including one that,
dishing it.
You know, he kind of slipped under the radar there, expecting another, you know, addition in the midfield here in the next couple weeks. That's a little news there. And the Michael Bradley, great question by you there. In Sporting KC, it sounds like they ended up being the number 2 probably in that bidding war.
Yeah, as far as that midfielder potentially coming in the next couple of weeks, I've heard just a little bit. Don't have a name yet, but I've been told it is a player whose name a lot of people will recognize. So, you know, if you follow the world of soccer, I would assume probably somebody coming from Europe, a name that people will know. So, you know, the reinforcements and the depth in that midfield area, which I would make a case, and you made the case, and I think Peter backed it up as well, probably their thinnest area of the field right now. So, you know, bring an impact player into that midfield, and you take a team that's already a championship team and you add just one more quality player to it, you add one more level to it, very similar to going out getting Claudio Bieler, Benny Feilhaber last year.
All right, we'll take a timeout. When we come back, we'll break down some of Peter's comments more. We'll also take your calls if you want to join us. 913-381-810 is the number. Again, 913-381-810. You're listening to a special edition of the Sporting KC Show here on Sports Radio 810.
It's a good price.
Good.
It's low mileage. They were very straightforward about the lowest price. And
No haggling, no hassle type thing. I'm all for that.
How did we do on your trade-in value?
Really well. I was hoping for half of what I got for
I
it.
got, over what I was thinking I was going to get for it.
We'll be back ourselves. Even if we don't live in the area, we'll figure out a way.
Whatever you require for audio, video, and broadcast solutions, it's Professional Video Supply. PVS is a leading supplier and integrator of pro video and audio gear for the Midwest. For the boardroom, worship, production houses, medical facilities, TV stations, and sports networks, PVS has it. Canon, Sony, Yamaha, Sharp, and hundreds of others. From a single camera or touchscreen display to an entire TV studio, remember Professional Video Supply, the official video source for 810 WHB TV and PVSKC.com. PVSKC.com.
Some of the best teams in the world are in Kansas City. The Chiefs, the Royals, Sporting, and the Border Patrol.
The Border Patrol? St. John and Bucati? Those two guys couldn't hold on.
Easy there, fellas. We may not be the two godfathers of Kansas City sports like you guys are,
But we do know how to have a good time talking sports.
and having a good time like Gary Lezak has a good time.
Make the Border Patrol a part of your morning, just like I do.
Watch Sports Radio 810's Border Patrol, weekday mornings from 7 to 8 on 38 The Spot.
Whatever you require for audio, video, and broadcast solutions, it's Professional Video Supply. PVS is a leading supplier and integrator of pro video and audio gear for the Midwest. For the boardroom, worship, production houses, medical facilities, TV stations, and sports networks, PVS has it. Canon, Sony, Yamaha, Sharp, and hundreds of others. From a single camera or touchscreen display to an entire TV studio, remember Professional Video Supply, the official video source for 810 WHB TV and PVSKC.com. PVSKC.com.
Welcome back. One final segment here of the Sporting KC show on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Dave Borchard here alongside Andy Edwards. And our thanks again to Peter Vermes, Sporting KC manager, for joining us last segment. Some interesting quotes, I thought. And, you know, Andy, if I can read between the lines, as Kevin Keatsman likes to do each afternoon,
Nice.
I'd almost get the vibe that Chance Myers isn't going to be back the way Peter was talking. Now, again, that's just reading between the lines, but he talked about how we've had lots of good players that have come and gone. I mean, he said things like that a couple times. It says they've made an offer. It gets to the point where guys want to keep getting more and more money based on good performance. And I may just be reading too much into it,
Sure.
but his answer almost made it seem like a 50-50 proposition at best.
When Peter Vermes said that, that's exactly what he wanted. He doesn't care how you interpret it or how anyone else interprets it, but that's how he wants Chance Myers and obviously Chance Myers' agent to interpret a quote like that. For him to say, well, yeah, he's a very good player. He's been a good player for us, and we'd love to have him back, but he's replaceable. So, you know, they're not going to be bent over a barrel in terms of negotiations, being able to try and fit him under the salary cap, everything that goes along with that. So, you know, I always take with a bit with a grain of salt when talking about an ongoing negotiation, what a coach says, what somebody that's heavily involved in those kind of negotiations says. But yeah, you know, it says to me that there is a potential contingency plan in case Chance Myers is not back this season. You know, they have it has crossed their mind. They've crossed that bridge and thought, you know, okay, well, if Chance Myers is not back this year, who is our starting right back? Who is our backup right back? And so they've thought about it. They're not going to be unprepared for a situation that might come up like that. But, you know, I still think, look, Chance Myers is going to have probably his best options outside of re-signing with Sporting Kansas City. It's probably going to be to go to somewhere in Europe, like maybe a Sweden or a Norway, somewhere in Scandinavia, a league that is, you know, for everything that's said about Major League Soccer, a league that is vastly, vastly inferior to what we have here in MLS. The competition that he'll face each day, probably the coaching that he gets each day, I believe to be vastly inferior. And if he wants to make that World Cup roster, which I'm sure he does, and he's got a chance, by the way, because there's two positions in the national team heading into the World Cup that we do not have any sort of regular starter at, and that's left back and that's right back. Sporting Kansas City just so happened to have a left back and a right back in the national team camp at the moment, so both those guys have a chance. But if Chance Myers really wants to make a final push, I think he has to stay right here in the place that's gotten him the opportunity to be involved with the national team if he's going to make one final push. Jurgen Klinsmann obviously rates Peter Vermes as a manager. He obviously rates his system, his philosophy, the way his teams play, because he's brought in Zusi and brought in Beasler, both within the last year, and they are now regular stalwarts with the national team. If Myers wants to make it, I think he's got to stay here to get that chance.
You know, in some ways, Chance Myers reminds me of Roger Espinoza, where he's a guy that everybody thinks is a good player. He's a hard worker. But you look at his statistics, and it's like, oh, okay, well, they probably could replace him statistically fairly easily. You look at it from last year, 2 goals, 3 assists, and we know the 2 goals in one game, they were the first 2 goals of his career. You know, if a guy like Michak Jerome steps into that role, could he at least replace his production statistically?
Kai Kamara scored 30 goals over 3 seasons from 2010 to 2012. He scored 7 in like a third of a season in 2013. He left. Statistically, you would think that's a crippling loss. They were able to replace him, and then, 3-4 months after he left, that is when they finally won an MLS Cup. I don't think that's a huge coincidence that they were a very good team with him, but they came up short. He goes. Maybe there's a bit more of a sense of fitting the style into the team philosophy, and not one guy that's maybe playing a little bit outside the box, if you will, outside of that philosophy. It's not so much about the statistics or the flair or the names or even the most talented players, but if those guys come together and perform as a unit like Sporting Kansas City did through that great playoff run in route to MLS Cup, you know, that's much more important than having a guy, say, at Chance Myers' position right back. You know, I'd rather have Chance Myers than a guy that contributes 10 assists over a season, 12 assists, 15 assists, however many, and doesn't really fit into the team. It doesn't fit into the philosophy, the style, doesn't buy into everything. Chance Myers is very, very difficult to replace for for Sporting Kansas City if he goes.
It's interesting from Peter Vermes as well. And I think we both kind of at least heard some whispers from people outside of the team that maybe Roger Espinoza, possible chance for a return. And, I don't think Peter wanted to get involved with any tampering, but he certainly didn't deny that there'd be some interest there. That could have been interesting, or maybe still could be interesting as a possible future addition and a return. And then, the Michael Bradley talk. Can you imagine either one of those guys on this team? Holy cow, we're talking about a team that's already really, really good. And if you added in Bradley especially, holy cow.
The hype and build-up for Michael Bradley coming to MLS and signing with Toronto was huge. Think if he was going to the defending MLS Cup champions. Think if he was going to what is looked at as a model franchise in Major League Soccer. Think if he was going into a team as talented as Sporting Kansas City. You throw Michael Bradley and as your box-to-box midfielder in front of Yuri Rosell, behind Benny Feilhaber. You've got Graham Zusi on one wing. You've got Claudio Bielor up top. You've got those four guys across the back line that 2 years running have led the league in fewest goals. I mean, how do you beat a team like that? And that's the kind of ambition, just like Peter said when he was talking about the ownership, that's the kind of ambition that they show and the willingness to go out and throw money at the right player, Let me emphasize that again. Michael Bradley would 100%, just like Peter said, and anybody that has ever seen Michael Bradley play would attest, would be the absolute perfect fit for Sporting Kansas City's system in that midfield. And so the willingness from them is absolutely there. If they think they have the right guy, they will spend the money on him. They will not just spend money just to appease fans and say, look, we went and spent a bunch of money, bow down to us. It will not be like that. It'll be the right guy. Roger Espinoza, that's a guy that would, the right guy, the right fit for the system and everything. Somebody that's already been in that organization, knows how things work. And I think there was a time going back to the end of the season last year where I think they thought they had a real chance of bringing Roger Espinoza in. He was not playing at all for Wigan, like you said when we talked to Peter. And I'm sure there was some talks behind the scenes between Peter and probably Roger's agent, potentially even Roger as well, potentially the two clubs discussing maybe even a transfer fee. But I think there was a time that they believed that Roger Espinoza was coming back to Sporting Kansas City for 2014. They fired their coach, Owen Coyle, early in October around that time, and Roger has been getting more chances to play since then. So that's probably fallen by the wayside just a little bit. But at some point, if Roger Espinoza does want to come back to come back to MLS, Kansas City are the ones that hold his rights. So he'll be coming back here first.
So Sporting KC has not had an incredibly active offseason compared to some of the other top contenders in Major League Soccer, but at the same time, especially once the five players, assuming Chance Myers returns, once the five players get back from the national team camp, you're talking about incredible continuity as far as the roster from last year. The only real change in that scenario would be a goalkeeper. So where do you rank those things as far as some teams being active, really trying to improve the roster, and Sporting KC more staying pat, saying, hey, this is the team that got us to the championship. We're going to keep doing what we're doing and keep that continuity. Do you feel like that's the right approach as they try to defend the title in 2014?
Well, if you're a defending champion, you're not looking to go out and chop a team up and try and reinvent the wheel and put something new together. What you've done is obviously it has worked, and I think it will continue to work. You've got a very good core of players, like you mentioned, 5 guys that have earned an opportunity to go in to the national team. There's a lot of teams out there making a ton of moves. Obviously, Toronto probably leading the headlines. Michael Bradley, Jermaine Defoe, Gilberto. They've spent the most money out of anybody by a long shot. You've got Vancouver out there who for lack of a better term, have completely fallen apart and look like they have no organizational structure at all. Losing last year's Golden Boot winner Camilo to Querétaro down in Mexico. Basically, the player just decided, well, I don't want to play here anymore. I'd rather go there. So he just went to their training facility down in Mexico. And then pictures pop up on Twitter of him wearing this team's jersey while he's supposed to be on
30
Vancouver. And so, you talk about continuity. It's not just among the players on the field, but it's the organization as well. And just having a structure in place that works. Rob Heineman delegating there to Peter Vermes, and Peter Vermes handling all that. I would not expect to ever see a calamity, a disaster like Camilo happen with Peter Vermes in charge.
Our thanks to Peter Vermes for joining us on the show. Thanks to Jed Marshall for producing it tonight. For Andy Edwards, I'm Dave Borchert. You've been listening to the Sporting KC Show here on Sports Radio 810.